The 5 Mysterious Unsolved Murders of Time. Starting with at number 1, Jack the Ripper. London's most notorious serial killer prowled the East End over a century ago, preying on prostitutes and terrorizing the area. He made his mark as Jack the Ripper by killing and mutilating at least 5 women. Dread grew as the dead bodies began to pile up near each other within a 3-month period in 1888. The neighborhood was horrified to a degree bordering on panic when news broke of a second female victim. Local authorities at first wondered whether the suspect was a butcher or a doctor due to his signature and gory method of murder. The victims of the so-called Whitechapel murders, Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly, all had their throats slashed, and most of them had their stomachs slit and organs ripped out before being dumped on the streets, according to author Dave Yost. The FBI, which analyzed the case in 1988 at the behest of a movie production company, said each victim was known to be a heavy drinker and a prostitute. They were all targeted because they were readily accessible and were killed swiftly in the early morning hours. Number 2, the Black Dahlias. The sight stopped a mother and her child in their tracks. A naked woman was lying feet from the sidewalk. She was sliced cleanly in half at the waist, with not one drop of blood on her. The now infamous slaying of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short instantly captured headlines in 1947, with newspapers later dubbing her the Black Dahlia, in part because she had dark hair and an apparent preference for black clothing. Short, a Massachusetts native who had come to California in pursuit of fame, was bled dry before being dumped in an empty lot in a residential area of Los Angeles, authorities said. Her body appeared professionally dissected, and one breast was cut off, according to FBI records. It's unclear how the aspiring actor met such a grisly fate. Several dozens of people have claimed credit for the high-profile crime. However, none of the confessors appeared to be telling the truth, and the case has gone unsolved. The Los Angeles Police Department told Time recently that it is still investigating the cold case, although it did not provide any details. It's an unsolved case, LAPD officer Norma Eisenman said. There is no additional information for the detectives. Number 3, the Grimes sisters. On December 28, 1956, 15-year-old Barbara Grimes and her 13-year-old sister Patricia went to the nearby Brighton movie theater to see the Elvis Presley movie Love Me Tender. Several reliable sightings at the theater determined the two did arrive safely at the cinema. A friend sat behind them during the film, and this same friend later spotted them in line to purchase snacks at 9:30 p.m. When they did not arrive home by midnight, their mother, Loretta Grimes, became worried. She sent out 2 of her other children to the bus stop closest to the house to wait for the 2 girls. Several buses passed by, but the sisters were not on them. At a little after 2 a.m. on the morning of December 29th, their mother called the police. Within a week, law enforcement authorities determined it was unlikely the 2 girls ran away on their own. The fate of the sisters became known before the month was up. On January 22, 1957, Leonard Prescott, a day laborer, found the bodies of Barbara and Patricia Grimes in a ravine off German Church Road and County Line Road in Willow Springs. They appeared to have been dumped or thrown there by someone in a passing car. Number 4, Caroline Luard, the Seal Chart Murder. On 24th August 1908, at about 2:30 p.m., Luard and her husband left their home and went for a walk with their dog. According to her husband's account, they had 2 very different purposes. He wished to retrieve his golf clubs from the clubhouse at Godden Green Golf Club prior to a holiday that he and his wife were intending to take, while she merely wanted to get some exercise before returning home where she was expecting a Mrs. Stewart, wife of a local solicitor, for afternoon tea. When her husband returned, he found that Caroline Luard was not there, and so he went to look for her at the summer house, where he found her at 5:15 p.m. She had been shot at close range, the bullet entering the cheek just below the left eye and going upwards, which had left a slight black mark. She was then shot again at close range, behind the right ear, which left a heavy black mark around the wound. Her hands had been pulled back and 3 rings had been pulled from her fingers. Caroline and Major General Charles Luard were upstanding members of their community in Kent, England. Then tragedy struck, robbing them of the life they had built and enjoyed together. First, Caroline was found murdered at a neighbor's country home in Sealchart, Kent. Just weeks later, Charles took his own life. And though there's been much speculation, the case, widely known as the Sealchart murder, was never conclusively solved. And lastly, number 5, the Axemen of New Orleans. As you may have guessed, that night New Orleans' dance halls were overflowing as both professional and amateur bands played jazz at hundreds of parties across the city. Not a single person died that night. He killed regularly until October 1919, when the attacks suddenly stopped and the Axeman vanished from the streets. In 1919, an axe-wielding killer stalked New Orleans, murdering 6 and attacking 12 more. Many of those murdered were Italian or Italian-American, causing many to believe the attacks were racially motivated. In one of his most notorious acts, on March 13, 1919, a letter said to have been written by the Axeman was published in newspapers citywide. The letter claimed he would kill at 15 minutes past midnight on March 19th, but would not disturb the occupants of any place where jazz was playing. Esteemed mortal of New Orleans, they have never caught me and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then, so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe.